Hello, good day everyone. We are the Group 7 and today we are going to discuss the Kantian ethics. Before we move forward, here are the 5 essential questions that we need to answer later after we discuss the Kantian ethics. The first question is, can we gain knowledge without experience? Second, when will the will of man consider good? Third, what is the ethological moral theory? Fourth, what is categorical imperative? Fifth, what is our notion of duty? Moving forward to give you some insight about Immanuel Kant, this is his biography. A German philosopher and a key figure of the Enlightenment, known for his revolutionary ideas in metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and aesthetics, developed the concept of the Copernican revolution in philosophy. Author of influential works such as Critique of Pure Reason, Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, and Critique of Practical Reason, emphasized the importance of reason and autonomy in moral philosophy. Kant's philosophy had a profound impact on subsequent of philosophical thoughts. And now to give you some overview about the ethics of Immanuel Kant. Kant ethics is an deontological ethical theory, emphasizes duty, rationality, and moral principle, focuses on the importance of acting out of duty rather than consequences. Kantian ethics provides a rigorous framework for a moral decision-making based on duty, rationality, and universal moral principle. By emphasizing the importance of acting out of duty and adhering to moral rules derived from a reason, Kantian ethics offers a principled approach to ethics that prioritize moral integrity and universality over contingent outcomes.
Kant's epistemology as foundation of ethics. Kant's epistemology. Kant held that it is true that all knowledge begins with experience. Without experience, no knowledge takes place. However, Kant also held that it is not true that all knowledge arises from experience. Experience is not the sole source of knowledge. So, si Immanuel Kant, he disregarded the idea of rationalist and empiricist. However, he agreed with David Hume. So, Hume argues that our knowledge came from experiences. Kant agreed with it, but not fully. Because for Kant, he believed na, oo nga, galing nga sa experiences yung knowledge natin. Pero hindi naman yun yung sole source nun. Priori and posteriori. Priori is a knowledge independent from any experience, while posteriori is it expresses something the speaker knows from the experience. In simple words, yung priori, knowledge na hindi galing sa experience, while the posteriori, yung knowledge naman na galing sa experience. And mas maipapaliwanag ko siya mamaya sa mga susunod na slides. So for Kant, may dalawang uri ng judgment. First is the analytic judgment and second is yung synthetic judgment. Sa analytic judgment, isa sa mga example nun is man is a thinking being. Yung subject na man is connected sa predicate na thinking being, while the predicate thinking being is connected sa subject na man. Hindi na natin siya kailangan pa na complicate since those words complement with each other. This is considered a priori because it's impossible naman, di ba, to meet every man. Pero alam naman natin, gamit yung ating rational judgment, na every man is a thinking being, every man thinks. On the other hand, yung synthetic judgment, the predicate and the subject does not complement with each other. For example, banana is sweet. When we think of banana, hindi naman sweet yung unang word na papasok sa isip natin. Kapag naman inisip naman natin yung word na sweet, hindi naman yung word na banana yung unang papasok din sa isip natin. So, malalaman lang natin or mapoprove lang natin yung statement na banana is sweet kapag na-try natin siya. Kaya ito ay considered na posteriori. Kasi yung posteriori, yun nga yung knowledge natin na based from our experience. Si Kant, meron pa siyang isang tinatawag na judgment, which is the synthetic a priori judgment. Ang isang example nito ay 5 plus 3 equals to 8. Isa itong priori dahil pag sinabing 5 plus 3, alam naman na natin agad na 8 ang magiging sagot. Pero ito rin ay considered na synthetic dahil pag sinabi naman natin ng ang answer na number 8, hindi naman agad tayo magde-derive sa conclusion na ito ay galing sa problem na 5 plus 3. Madami pa tayong may isip na possibilities para makuha ang number na 8. Kant also introduced two realities, phenomenal reality and nominal reality. Yung phenomenal reality refers to objects as they appear. Phenomenal is yung reality na meron tayo. Yung reality na binubuo natin sa utak natin and yung tingin natin sa buhay natin. While yung nominal reality, a single undifferentiated entity that is spaceless, timeless, non-material, and beyond the reach of causality. Example nito is yung world of dogs. Alam natin na may sarili silang pamumuhay or pag-iisip or may sarili silang nakikita. Alam natin yon, pero hindi natin siya mararanasan ever on our own. So, yun yung example ng nominal reality. Alam natin nag-i-exist siya, pero hindi natin siya mararanasan. Next topic is Kantian concept of morality. Transcendental perspective. According to Kant's transcendental perspective, a human being is not so much subject to outside forces originating from the object's external circumstances, be it pleasure, happiness, a practical benefit, or even God. Instead, it sees a man as logical, self-governing, being that complies with internal absolute demands inherent in him as logical free will. Ang sinasabi dito ay yung transcendental perspective ni Kant, naniniwala siya na ang man ay hindi masyadong mabilis ma-influensyahan ng mga nakapaligid dito. Dahil ito ay nag-iisip, ito ay may logic at may free will. Deontologism. Ethical view of Kant. Deontologism comes from the Greek word deontos, which means duty, and logos, which means study. The emphasis of Kantian ethics is duty or obligation. Ang sinasabi or inargue ng deontologism is dapat ginagawa ng tao yung obligation niya dahil gusto niya at hindi dahil napipilitan lang siya. Kantian morality. Kant held what is morally right or wrong is solely a matter of intent, motive, and will. In other words, the goodness and badness of an actions depend on intuition, which is internal motive or intention. In this sense, Kantian morality can also be considered as a form of intuitionism or a form of motivist theory. Ang sinasabi dito ni Immanuel Kant is yung malalaman lang natin or makukonsider lang siya na morally right ang ginawa ng isang tao depende sa kanyang intention. Isa sa example nun is, kunwari, I got a haircut and then hindi siya bagay sa akin. Pero nakita ni Janet, so sabi niya, oh, it looks good on you. It will be considered morally right dahil yung intention lang niya is to make me feel good or better.
Moving forward, the moral duty. Kant grounds morality in the concept of duty. Moral worth derived from acting out of duty, motivated by respect for the moral law. Moral duty is determined with a rational principle binding all the rational agents. Here po is sinasabi niya that moral worth is derived from acting out of a sense of our duty, motivated by respect for the moral law itself. Moral duties are determined by rational principles that are binding all of the rational agents, irrespective of personal desire or outcome. This means that the moral actions are performed not out inclination of a self-interest, but out of recognition of one's duty to uphold universal moral principle. For example po, we have a scenario where a person finds a lost wallet containing a large sum of money. According to Kantian ethics, the moral duties in this situation will be return the wallet in the rightful owner, regardless of a personal desire or potential consequences. The action is motivated by the duty to respect the property rights of the other and uphold the principle of honesty, demonstrating how the moral worth derive from acting out of duty. And now for the notion of duty, the distinction between I want and I owe. Moral actions are not spontaneous. If I see someone in need of help, I may be inclined to look the other way, but I will recognize that is my duty to help. Considering only those actions that are seemingly good according to Kant are actions that seem good by duty, that are good by the common sense of the duty, for that they are right. So here is like my example for the notion of I want and I owe. Example po, you are walking sa market and may nakita po kayong tao na sobrang bigat or parang matanda na nahihirapang buhatin yung dala niya kasi it's mabigat. So, now we will going to distinguish between I want and I owe. For I want, my initial reaction upon seeing this person struggling with groceries might be influenced by personal inclination or desire. I may feel sense of empathy or sympathy, but might also feel, or I might also think that I want to keep walking and mind my own business, or I don't have time to stop kasi nga late na ako sa pupuntahan ko. Someone else will help them. And for the I oath naman po, or our moral obligation, despite my initial inclination or desire to avoid getting involved, I might recognize a moral obligation or duty to help the person in need. This recognition is based on a rational principle and universal of the moral law. For example, is I ought to help this person because it might, or this is the right thing to do, or it is my duty as a moral agent to offer help to someone in need. So even though it may convenience me, I have a responsibility to act morally. So in this example, Kant would argue that genuine moral action arises from recognizing and acting up upon moral duties, rather than following a spontaneous inclination or desire. While my initial inclination might be to avoid involvement or ignore the situation, your recognition of duty compels you to override personal desire and acting according to moral principle. Kant emphasized that the moral action requires deliberation and adhere to universalized moral law, even when they conflict with our immediate inclination or self-interest. Therefore, the distinction between I want and I ought highlights the ethical significance of recognizing and fulfilling moral obligation based on reason and duty, rather than acting solely based on personal desire or impulse. Now, moving forward, we have kinds of duty. The first one is action done in accord with duty. The second is action from a sense of duty. Here, Kant emphasized that the moral worth is not merely determined by the outward actions themselves, but by the motives and intentions behind those actions. Can't distinguish between actions done according with duty and actions done from a sense of duty. To illustrate this concept, here is my example. Action in accord with duty. An action that is done in accord with duty is one where individuals perform a morally correct action, but the motivation behind those actions is based on a self-interest, personal gain, or avoidance of punishment. For example, we were having an exam or upcoming exam, and I'm going to study diligently for that exam. Kasi I want to pass the subject and I wanted to graduate and to have a decent job. Also, I don't want my parent to scold me. That is why, in this case, the action of studying is in the line with the duty of doing well academically, but motivated behind the driven by external factors unrelated to the moral principle. And the next one is the action from a sense of duty. In contrast, an action done from a sense of duty is one where an individual performs a morally principle and respected for the moral law itself. So, continuing my example, I am a student who will going diligently or going good in studying kasi I wanted to recognize the importance of education and believe in the value of hard work and learning. In this action, I feel motivated by the sense of duty. The intention is aligned with the moral principle rather than external reward or consequences. So, to summarize it up, Kant emphasized that the action done merely accord with duty, driven by self-interest or external pressures, lack genuine moral significance. While the outward behavior may conform to moral rules, the underlying motive does not reflect a genuine commitment to moral principle. In Kantian terms, moral worth attributes to the action that are performed from a sense of duty. Action motivated by genuine respect for a moral law and a recognition of moral obligation. In summary, Kant's distinction between action in accord with duty and actions from a sense of duty underscores the important moral intentions and motives in ethical decision-making. Kantian ethics emphasizes that true moral worth derives from acting out of a sense of duty, guided by rational moral principle rather than merely comporting to an external expectations of self-serving interests.
Now let's talk about the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative. It is a command or maxim that enjoins to do a certain action without qualification, inasmuch as doing such an act is the most universally accepted thing to do. It lays down a universal rule which, if followed, will ensure that a person is acting from a sense of duty. Such action or moral decision is morally legitimate and just. So what is categorical imperative for Kant? So when we say morality, for Kant, morality is more in accordance with the categorical imperative. And categorical imperative, as you can see, we have the word maxim here, and maxim means a rule behind an action that you are about to do. So it's like a golden rule, and it is something that you must always do no matter what the situation is or what you want to achieve, what your desires are. Basta, yung mga ginagawa mo is universally accepted. That's categorical imperative. So we have the three general types of imperative. So first we have here the imperative of skill. So it is the necessary measure or means a person must take in a view of the end or goal that he wishes to pursue. So meaning, kung may gusto kang i-achieve and meron kang measure or necessary means na dapat mong gawin para ma-achieve mo yung goal na yan. For example, you want to be a professional basketball player. And to be a professional basketball player, you will train your skills and work hard, practice hard, and then you're gonna be scouted or something in a team, in a professional team, And ayan, makukuha mo na yung pagiging professional basketball player mo. That's what we call the imperative of skill. So, taking the any means or necessary things to achieve a goal. Next naman, meron tayong the imperative of prudence. Is the necessary measure or means that a human person out of tact or practicality must take if he wants to attain happiness. So ito yung mga bagay na kailangan mo gawin in order to be happy. And ano nga ba yung mga meaning natin ng happiness? So dahil iba-iba nga tayo, lahat tayo may iba't ibang meaning ng happiness. And pwedeng masaya ako kapag nakagraduate ako. So gagawin ko yung mga kailangan ko para makagraduate. So mag-aral ako ng mabuti, aayusin ko yung mga projects ko, ganon. And eventually, makakagraduate ako kasi nag-aaral na ako ng mabuti, and that's my happiness. So, meron namang iba, gusto din maging professional basketball player kasi yun yung happiness nila. So, yun yung imperative of prudence. So, doing things to attain your happiness. So, third, we have the imperative of morality. Is that which is considered to be already part of human nature. Such an imperative is said to be intrinsic to the nature of the action being commanded, independent from any ulterior end or consequences. Meaning lang nito is doing what's right no matter what. So we have here the example na commandment ni God na thou shall not kill. So, for example, meron kang friend na sinabi sa'yo na magiging friends tayo kapag pinatay mo siya. Ganon. Pag pinatay mo siya. Pero para kay Kant, dito sa imperative of morality, alam naman natin yung pagpatay is wrong. So, syempre, hindi mo gagawin yon kahit na mawawalan ka ng kaibigan. Diba? So, yun lang yung pinaparating ng imperative of morality. Doing what's right no matter what. So we have the three general types of imperative. So first we have here the imperative of skill. So it is the necessary measure or means a person must take in a view of the end or goal that he wishes to pursue. So meaning, kung may gusto kang i-achieve and meron kang measure or necessary means na dapat mong gawin para ma-achieve mo yung goal na yan. For example, you want to be a professional basketball player. And to be a professional basketball player, you will train your skills and work hard, practice hard, and then you're gonna be scouted or something in a team, in a professional team, and ayan, makukuha mo na yung pagiging professional basketball player mo. That's what we call the imperative of skill. So, taking the any means or necessary things to achieve a goal. So first, we have here the act only on the maxim whereby they can and at the same time will that it will become a universal law. Kant said that everything in nature works according to laws. Consequently, rational beings alone have the faculty of acting according to the conception of laws. Kant believed that this categorical imperative is our conception of the law of nature as it pertains to human behavior, meaning we only act on a way that we wanted people to act too. So, for example, stealing, hindi siya magiging universally accepted kasi it's morally wrong. And we don't want to do stealing kasi if we universalize stealing, di mo siya may-universalize eh. Pero if you universalize it, edi lahat ng tao mag-steal. And next naman na example is helping. So, paano kung tumulong tayo sa mga tao? And we all know that is morally right. So, it can be universalized. It's universally accepted. So, that's what we are meaning about this first formulation of the categorical imperative. We have here the second one. Act as if the maxim of your action were to become a universal law of nature. For instance, if we are going to make a precept everybody else should cheat as acceptable, this precept should be made binding to everyone. In other words, this should be made universal law mandating everyone to cheat. However, inasmuch as this could not be binding to everyone, because not everyone will consider cheating to be morally just, this law will never be acceptable to everybody. Therefore, the mandate should be, thou shalt not cheat because this is acceptable to everyone. So, meaning nito, yung imperative of duty, sinasuggest nito na when you're deciding whether an action is right or wrong, imagine kung lahat ng tao ginawa yung same action na ginawa mo, whether it's right or wrong. So, magiging magulo din. So, parang magkadikit lang din yung first one na formulation tsaka ito. For example, ito nga, sinabi dito yung cheating. O, kapag ang cheating, sinabi mo na everyone should cheat, pero lahat ng tao di nag-agree. So, hindi siya magiging universally accepted or magiging rule. Pero kung nag-agree sila, edi lahat ng tao mag-cheat. So, yan. Yung second one natin. So, third, we have here the act so as to treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of any other, every case as an end, never as means only. This formulation is Kant's principle of justice, which has an important consequence for democracy. This is interpreted to mean that everybody should be given the proper respect accorded to everyone else as a human being. For Kant kasi, ang human intelligent to is inherent and cannot be reduced. So, dapat hindi siya ginagamit as a means for an end. So, ano ba yung sinasabi ko na to? For example, may mag-asawa. And yung lalaki is nag-cheat siya. So, ginamit niya yung mistress niya as a means for an end dahil sa mga selfish desires niya. So, do you get what I mean? Ito, yung ginamit mo siya kasi gusto mo masatisfy yung fact na parang nagsasawa ka na dun sa asawa mo. Kaya ginamit mo yung mistress na yon as a means to an end to get that goal na para masatisfy mo yung sarili mo. So, that's how the third categorical imperative formulation is for Kant. So, dapat nire-respeto ang tao, hindi siya means for an end kasi humans are intelligent.
The Kantian concept of a moral person. Kant's concept of a moral person is based on autonomy and the ability to rationally regulate oneself. Kant defined a moral person as a someone who acts in line with moral principle out of sense of obligation, rather than being only motivated by the desire or external reasons. For example, meron po isang babaeng influencer sa TikTok na gustong magbigay ng tulong sa mga nangangailangan. Pero masasabi mo nating moral ang kanyang kinikilos kung magbibigay siya ng tulong, hindi dahil magiging maganda yung imahe niya sa social media or magiging sikat pa siya sa TikTok, kundi dahil sa kanyang paniniwala na ito ang nararapat gawin at tamang gawin bilang isang taong may dangal at moralidad. Sa gantong paraan, ang kanyang pagkilos ay batay lamang sa kanyang sense of duty at hindi lamang sa pangsariling interest. Autonomy, it is to understood as governing, regulating, restraining oneself, including one's own choice or courses of action in accord with the most principles, which are one's own and which are binding on everyone. The central idea of Kant's ethical theory is that moral actors are dependent and rational beings. This perspective is based on belief that individuals have the ability to rule themselves and reason morally, allowing themselves to act on the principles of duty and morality rather than mere inclination or want. Sa pananaw ng autonomiya po, ito ay nauunawaan bilang sa pagmamahala ng at regulasyon ng sarili.
ang pagbigay sa sarili, kabilang ang sariling pagpili o mga hakbang na aksyon ayon sa pinakamahalagang prinsipyo ng kanyang sarili at nakabatay sa lahat ng tao. Halimbawa po, may isang estudyante na nagngangalang si Mark. Si Mark po ay may isang malalim na pag-uunawa at may isang pinaniniwalaang prinsipyo. Sa halip, dahil sa kanyang pagpapahalaga sa katarungan at integridad, pinili niyang iwasan ang pandaraya na tumutugon sa kanyang mga pansariling prinsipyo na itinuturing na isang obligasyon para sa kanyang sarili at para sa lahat. Two types of duties. The first one is perfect duty. Person must always observe irrespective of time, place, or circumstances. For instance, whatever I am, I always have the duty of not using harm to others. These duties are defined by their clarity or definition, with no opportunity for personal reference. Halimbawa po, for perfect duty include po prohibition of lying, stealing, or lahat po ng nasa batas na kailangan sundin sa pang-araw-araw nating ginagawa. The second types of duties is imperfect duty. Person must observe only on some occasions. For instance, I can always have a choice of who to love and who to share my blessing with. Imperfect obligation to do not require exact action, but rather general aims or goals that person should strive for. For example, imperfect duty is obligation include those that promote well-being of others or develop one's skills. While these responsibilities significant, they do not specify how they should be carried out or to what extent. For example po, sa imperfect duty is yung tungkulin mo na magbigay ng tulong sa kapwa mo, pero hindi ito pinag-uutos na gawin sa lahat ng oras or sa sitwasyon or sa pang-araw-araw nating ginagawa. So, pwede po tayo magbigay ng tulong kung kailan lang natin gusto. Pero matuturing pa rin po natin itong mahalagang obligasyon.
First question, can we gain knowledge without experience? According to Kant, we can gain knowledge without experience. Kasi may rational judgment tayo. May mga bagay na hindi pa naman natin naranasan, pero dahil tayo ay nag-iisip, alam natin or may hint tayo sa kung ano yung mga possibilities na pwedeng mangyari or pwede nating gawin. Second question, when will the will of man considered good? Mako-consider lang na good ang will ng isang tao kapag ang intention ng tao ay para sa ikakabuti. May mga instances na maaaring hindi tama ito sa mata ng iba, pero para kay Kant, basta pure yung intention mo, then your will is also good.
And now to answer the number 3, the deontologism, also known for deontological ethics or deontology. It is a moral theory that emphasizes the inherent uprightness or wrongness of an action based their conformity to certain moral rules or principles, rather than focusing solely on the consequences of those actions. Deontology is a term derived from the Greek word deon, which means duty or obligation. It emphasizes the importance of moral duty, rules, and principles in guiding ethical behavior, independent of the consequences that may result from those actions. It is one of the major approaches within normative ethics, alongside consequentialism and virtue ethics, has been articulated by the philosophers such as Immanuel Kant. So now let's move forward to the question, to the answer of the Question number 4. Consider the moral principle of honesty. Always tell the truth. According to the categorical imperative, the principle is universal because it can be applied consistently to a rational being. If everyone were to always tell the truth, trust and communication will be fostered in society. In contrast, lying cannot be consistently universalized without undermining the concept of truth itself, demonstrating its consistency with the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative represents Kant's foundation principle of moral reasoning, emphasizing universality, respect for rational being, and adhere to principles that can be viewed as universal law. It serves a criterion for evaluating the moral permissibility of actions and guiding individuals in making morally principled in decision making. Now let's move forward to the last question. This is the answer for the number 5. We have two notions of duty, the I want and I owe. So imagine you were you encounters a person need help on the street. An action based on I want might involve ignoring the person in need due to a desire to avoid inconvenience or discomfort. And an action based on I ought would entail stopping to assist the person in need out of a sense of moral duty and compassion despite any personal inconvenience or reluctance. So the distinction between I want and I ought underscore the importance of moral obligation duty and adhere to universal moral principle in decision making. Kantian ethics emphasizes acting from a sense of duty and prioritizing moral responsibility over self-serving desire or inclinations. Thus, this distinction highlights the foundational role of duty in Kantian ethics framework, emphasizing rationality, moral principle, and the objective basis of moral actions. So that's all for our presentation today. So I hope you learned something from Kantian ethics. Thank you.